Hello and welcome everybody to the September 18th Harbor Commission regular meeting. I'm Chair Stanowik and calling to order this meeting at 6:30 p.m. And Mr. Lopez, could we please have a roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Cohen is absent, as is Commissioner McRae. Commissioner Nelson.
Here.
Commissioner Stedman.
Here.
And Chair Stanowik.
Here. Great, thank you. We usually have 7 members. We have 4 today. 4 makes a quorum, so we are able to move forward with today. Director Wilshire, do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
Yeah, Chair Stanowik, just one change. Item number 3, the presenter from UCSB had a conflict, and so they canceled last minute, and so we'll just reschedule that for another meeting. Remove number 3 from the agenda. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we'll look forward to them presenting later this year then. Great. Mr. Lopez, do we have any general public comment this evening?
We do have one speaker slip submitted, Andy LaSavage.
Great, we'll have Mr. LaSavage. Feel free to come up to the podium, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Great. Thank you very much. My name's Andy LaSavage, and I shared with you all a presentation on the floating sauna. So the big thing I want to convey is wellness on the water. I think that's something that we can all really benefit from in this health and wellness community that we have here. We're very lucky to be in a wonderful area, and there's currently a floating albatross out there, and it's a private home. And so I would like to turn this into a public benefit. And so I would like to get your support in turning this home into a contrast therapy sauna and cold plunge studio. So we've got plans to basically renovate this home and turn it into a public benefit where there's men and women separate community saunas and cold plunging. A place like Oslo, Norway has 19 floating saunas, and I think that creating a social wellness experience on the water in Santa Barbara would be an amazing benefit for everyone. It would really drive a lot of community benefit to not only boost tourist activity, but new revenue streams as well. So we would estimate that we would generate over $100,000 a year for the city, and we have a plan to operate the business and provide community experiences for people to come in as well as tourists. So we are not planning on creating a dynamic that would really disrupt the existing community and liveaboards, and we'd want it to be ADA accessible. And we would definitely take the right safety requirements to make sure that it's not a liability and have a trained CPR staff member there at all times. And so, again, this would be an amazing thing to turn this individual home into a public benefit, and I would like your support in doing that. And so I would love to share more details with you if you have the time. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Mr. LaSavage.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lopez, do we have any other general public comment this evening?
There are no speaker slips submitted and no hands raised. Chair Stanowik.
Great, thank you. Also, I know we did receive a written public comment for, I believe, a similar issue that Mr. LaSavage said as well, which we were able to read earlier today. So, thank you. Okay, we can move on to the work group reports now. Is there any member of the commission who would like to report on any of the work groups? Commissioner Stedman?
Yes, I'll be brief in my remarks about the strategy and planning work group. We met, and the summary was emailed to all commission members. So if you haven't had a chance to read that, that's just broken down into, and that's also why this evening you have these dashboards in front of you, just to get an overview. But the contents of that particular report are the background, the working background of what we've done, and a lot of that's been with the direct support of Director Wilshire. We've done a lot of knowledge building, engaging the community, and of course our next steps are outlined. in that report. So if there's any questions, get them over to me and I'll try to answer them for you. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Stedman. With no other work group reports, we can move on to item number 1 of the agenda, the consent calendar. Mr. Lopez, can you please read item number 1, approval of the minutes for us?
Yes, this is item 1, recommendation that Harbor Commission waive further reading and approve the minutes from the regular meeting of August 21st, 2025.
Great, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes, item number 1?
Motion to approve?
We have a motion and we have a second. Mr. Lopez, can you please do a vote for us on item number 1, the consent calendar, approval of the minutes?
Yes, this is a motion by Commissioner Stedman, seconded by Commissioner Nelson to approve item 1, the approval of the minutes from the consent calendar. Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen is absent, as is Commissioner McCray. Commissioner Nelson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stedman?
Yes.
And Chair Stanwyck.
Yes.
And that motion passes unanimously with Commissioners Cohen and McCray absent.
Great, thank you. Okay, we can move on now to new business. Item number 2 is the appeal of denial of waiver of termination of slip permit 1F8. Mr. Lopez, can you please read the recommendation for us?
Yes, this is item 2. Recommendation that Harbor Commission consider the appeal of the Waterfront Director's denial of the appellant's request for waiver of termination of slip permit 1F008 in the Santa Barbara Harbor and uphold the Waterfront Director's decision to terminate slip permit 1F008.
Great, thank you. So from time to time, we do these slip termination appeals. And to clarify, the slip has been terminated by the waterfront. We are merely listening to the appeal tonight. The way we are going to do this is similar in the past. Each party will have 10 minutes. We're going to start with the waterfront. We aren't going to do any kind of questions or Q&A afterwards, as that will give an unfair and an unfair advantage to one of the other parties. So we're just going to leave 10 minutes and 10 minutes. We'll open it up to public comment. We'll deliberate, and then we'll vote on either the 2 choices to consider the appeal or to uphold the waterfront's decision. So with that, we'll turn over to the first party, the waterfront, for 10 minutes on item number 2. Thanks. I'll keep track as well with Mr. Lopez, and we'll let you know when the 10 minutes is getting close to being up.
Good evening, Chair Stanwyck, Harbor Commissioners, and members of the public. My name is Nathan Aldridge. I am the Harbor Operations Manager. And this evening, I will be presenting the details on the termination appeal for slip permit 1F8. And I understand that staff has equal time to present, so I will keep this within the allotted 10 minutes. The recommendation in front of Harbor Commission today is to uphold the slip termination for slip permit 1F8. And I will outline the timeline and the background of this termination in the next few slides. As a reminder to the Commission and members of the public, a slip permit is a revocable month-to-month license agreement. Slips can be terminated for violating terms of the municipal code or the slip permit rules and regulations. A slip termination is the Waterfront Department's last consequence for failure to adhere to either of these rules. As the Commission is aware, termination process is lengthy, with many opportunities to remedy the problem. The Harbor Commission plays a critical role in upholding and enforcing all provisions of the slip permit and our municipal code. And the Harbor Commission acts as a final appeal board for an appeal determination. So on the screen is the municipal code language outlining the specifics and termination authority for this particular case. This termination stems from the bold section on the bottom of that slide, which I will read. Failure to pay monthly slip fees, together with all accumulated late charges, may result in termination of the slip permit. Termination of a slip permit due to late payment of slip fees may also result in termination of a liveaboard permit that may have been issued to a slip permittee of the terminated slip permit. And for some further background on slip permit 1F8, the slip permittee is George Alexiadis. Mr. Alexiadis was assigned the slip permit for 1F8 in 2013 and was assigned a liveaboard permit last year, 2024. The slip was terminated due to unpaid slip fees in April of 2025, which remained unpaid despite repeated notice and missed deadlines from the department. The permittee was notified from the beginning that the termination process could be stopped at any time by bringing the account up to date. And here's a rundown of the timeline of the events leading up to the termination. On April 18th of 2025, one F8 was returned an auto pay for non-sufficient funds for the month of April. On May 13th of that same year, the Waterfront sent a formal warning letter to the slip permittee regarding potential slip termination for threatening and erratic behavior in and around the marinas. On the 21st of May, again, one F8, the slip payment was returned for non-sufficient funds. It was April and May. And then the following month, on the 1st of July, the Waterfront sent a 30-day notice of intent to terminate to the slip permittee. Several weeks later, on the 20th of July, again, payment for slip 1 F8 was returned for non-sufficient funds. It was April, May, and June. Several days later, on July 24th, a reminder notice again was sent with a 30-day notice of intent to terminate slip. And then on August 8th, 2025, the slip permit was terminated, and the vessel in that slip, wind down, was converted to visitor status. 3 days later, on August 11th, the motor vessel wind down was impounded for non-payment of visitor fees. The 12th of August, the Waterfront Department received a criminal protective order naming George Alexiadis as the restrained party in a criminal protective order involving another slip permittee in the harbor and waterfront business owner. Several days after that, on the 14th of August, the slip permittee appealed the termination to the waterfront director. The waterfront director denied the slip permittee's appeal on the 25th of August. Several days later, on the 29th, the slip permittee submitted an appeal denial to Harbor Commission. And today, the 18th, is the appeal hearing. So procedurally, upon slip termination, when and if a slip permit has been terminated or closed, the vessel occupying the slip defaults to visitor vessel status on that closing date. In this specific case, the vessel wind down began accruing nightly visitor vessel fees on August 8th, concurrent with that termination. After 4 days of non-payment being on visitor status, that vessel was impounded for non-payment of delinquent fees per Santa Barbara Municipal Code Section 17.20.220, subsections B and C, and currently remains impounded with daily fees accruing. In conclusion, it's important to remember that termination is the very last resort for failing to comply with provisions of the slip permit or the municipal code. In the Waterfront's termination letter warning, the permittee was made well aware that the termination process could be stopped by bringing the account up to date. The department enforces all provisions of the slip permit agreement to all slip permittees in the municipal code in a fair and consistent manner. And staff followed all proper slip termination procedures, sending out multiple notices and warnings before beginning this termination process. And to conclude, it's the role of the Harbor Commission to weigh the totality of the circumstances when deciding an appeal. So to close, tonight's recommendation is for Harbor Commission to deny the appeal and uphold the termination of slip permit 1 F8. At this time, I will pass it back to Chair Stanwyck and the Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Eldridge. That was about 7 minutes, and with that, we will turn it over to the applicant. If they would like to come up here and give their voice in the matter of the appeal, they will have 10 minutes.
Good evening.
Hello.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is George Alexiadis. I've been part of the Santa Barbara Harbor community for many years. I first held a slip here for 2 years before 2013. never missing a payment. And the past 12 years, I maintained slip 1F008 for my vessel wind down. During this time, I paid $70,000 in slip fees, always keeping my account in good standings except for a short period of time this year. The lapse happened because of circumstances beyond my control, including fraud on my bank account. It was never a lack of funds or intention to pay. Since then, I've cleared my accounts and I'm fully prepared to pay current things moving forward. I take pride in keeping my boat in top condition. Every 2 years, I haul it out of the water here in the harbor for full maintenance, and I have a professional clean it every 2 months, both the top and the hull. My vessel has always been kept to the highest standards and fully compliant with harbor requirements. My ties to Santa Barbara are deep. My family owned property here since the 1960s, and after both parents passed, the slips become one of my last real ties to this community. I've also made significant investments locally, including a major role in a restaurant near the harbor where I'll be running operations and creating jobs. Beyond that, I've worked in the harbor since 1998. I previously held a 100-ton captain's license and served as a safety diver here, giving me years of professional and safety experience in the ocean. I've also dedicated myself to this community, volunteering with the Bucket Brigade as a first responder, with Sea Shepherd, and with beach cleanups. I'm also a member of the Santa Barbara Yacht Club. This harbor also is where I'm raising my son, Weston. He's a member of the Santa Barbara Sailing Foundation, and I taught him how to row, boat, and surf the sandbar. Having a secure slip is more about the convenience. It's about safety. Without it, I would be forced to anchor and moor offshore, which carries unnecessary risks, especially with a 7-year aboard. I understand the rules and I respect them. What I'm asking for tonight is a chance to contribute to this community, to continue paying my slip fees, and to preserve the place here in Santa Barbara Harbor. I also want to acknowledge earlier this year, after losing both my parents within a year, I went through a very difficult period, and I didn't always handle things as I should have. I want to seriously apologize. It's been a time of growth, and I believe everyone deserves a second chance. To show my commitment, I am willing to pay my slip fees a full year in advance. My goal is to remain a positive part of the harbor community and continue contributing as I have for many years. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Alexiadis.
Thank you so much.
Okay, with that, I know the waterfront went 7 minutes. Did you guys want to continue with 3 more minutes with anything?
No, Chair Sandwick.
Great, thank you. Okay. With that, we have heard both sides. We've heard the waterfront, we've heard the applicant. We will now open this up to public comment. Mr. Lopez, do we have any public comment on this item?
Chair Stanwyck, I have no speaker slips submitted and no hands raised.
Great, thank you. Now it turns to the commission. Do the commission members have any thoughts on this? We'll deliberate and then we'll take a vote on this. Yes, go ahead. That'd be in order.
I have a question for the waterfront. During the time period 8/14 to 8/25, were there any discussions with the appellant?
Yeah, Commissioner Stedman, not to my knowledge. I could ask Waterfront Director Wiltshire, but not from my office.
Yeah, Chair Stanwyck, Commissioner Stedman, once the tip slip is terminated, we usually direct any communications through myself. And so Mr. Alexiadis did reach out by email a couple times for some clarifying information, which was provided to him.
Did he mention the fraud that had occurred to his bank account during that period?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Does anybody have any discussion points or any opinions regarding the situation? Okay. Mr. Lopez, can you please reread the recommendation for us?
Yes, the recommendation is that Harbor Commission consider the appeal of Waterfront Director's denial of the appellant's request for waiver of termination of slip permit 1F008 in the Santa Barbara Harbor and uphold the Waterfront Director's decision to terminate slip permit 1F008.
Great, thank you. As a reminder, just to say again, slip is terminated. We have heard the appeal. The Harbor Commission isn't the ones to determine if the slip is terminated, a matter of hearing the appeal. For me, it's difficult, like always. I appreciate the applicant being here tonight, shows he cares. But in this situation, we have behavior, we have restraining order, we have unpaid fees, and regarding the slip, we saw pretty clearly from the municipal code that this is city property. It's a month-to-month revocable license. There's unpaid fees still. I think with a active restraining order, it would be extremely difficult to access the slip. Along with that, it's probably just not a good idea with the comments that happened regarding the behavior issues to be in the marina. I think that is kind of a disservice to a lot of the people in the marina. There are rules of the city. I trust in the waterfront, and I believe what they did was right. Regarding the slip, in my opinion, I think upholding the decision is the thing that I would do in this case. I think one of the good parts about this, though, is it did specifically state in the staff report that if fees are paid, that the boat will become unconfiscated. So really, we are merely talking just about the slip here. The applicant would still have the vessel to take to another marina, Ventura, Oxnard, another part of California, and that would be fine. But with the facts presented to me tonight, I would be in favor of withholding the waterfront's decision. Does anybody else have any comments regarding the situation? Okay, with no comments, we would need to bring this to a vote. I would make a motion to uphold the waterfront's decision in this matter.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and we have a second. Mr. Lopez, can you please do a vote for us?
Yes, this is a motion by Chair Stanwyck, seconded by Commissioner Anderson, to uphold the Waterfront Director's decision to terminate slip permit 1F008. Commissioner Nelson?
Aye.
Commissioner Stedman?
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Chair Stanwyck.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously with Commissioners Cohen and McCray absent.
Okay. Thank you all for that. That is the conclusion of item number 2 of new business. We move on to item number 3 of new business, which is, as we heard from earlier today, it was canceled as a change to the agenda. We'll move on to item number 4, the Waterfront Department Fiscal Year 2025 Year-End Budget Review. Mr. Lopez, can you please read item number 4 for us and the recommendation?
Yes, this is item 4, recommendation that Harbor Commission receive a staff report and presentation providing a brief summary of the Waterfront Department's year-end revenues and expenditures for fiscal year 2025 as of June 30th, 2025, and provide comments as appropriate.
Great, thank you. Great, thank you. All right, we can turn that over to the Waterfront now for item number 4 of new business, the year-end budget review. Thanks, Mr. Barrios.
Good evening, Chair Stanwyck, Commissioners, and members of the public. My name is Cesar Barrios. I am the Waterfront Department's Business Manager, and today I will provide a brief year-end report for fiscal year 25. Diving right in. So here are our revenue summaries for fiscal year 2025, which ended June 30th of this year. The table summarizes the department's year-end revenues by program, which are the revenue-generating programs within the department. Overall, the department revenues finished the year nearly $21 million, and that's 1.9% or nearly $383,000 above the fiscal year 25 budgeted amounts, and $981,000 above the fiscal year 24 revenues from last year revenues, so almost $1 million more than we did last year. As shown here, the property management program ended fiscal year at 4% over the budgeted figures. However, this total only includes unresolved rent revenues from one of our key food service tenants, one of our restaurants, with approximately $630,000 in rent revenue yet to be collected by the department. As noted in the red at the bottom of this table, in the event we're not able to collect this outstanding revenue, we will have to make an adjustment to the budget to reflect an approximate $250,000 revenue deficit for year end, as opposed to being in the blue as we report right now. On to financial management, the next item below. This program consists of investment interest earned on the department's reserves. Interest revenue at year end is up 20.9%, just above $82,000, compared to the budgeted amounts. The large percentage increase is mainly driven by higher interest rates and larger reserve balances. The parking services program was up 4.3%. It did fairly well. That's just over $200,000 versus what we budgeted for. A large component of this increase, though, was the result of the increase hourly parking rate, which took effect on July 1st of 2024, where we increased the fees by 50 cents. The marina management revenue ended the year at 2.1% lower than we budgeted. The lower revenues are attributed to underperforming permit transfer fees, visitor fees, and liveaboard fees, all below what we expected and also below what we had on previous years. Also, it should be noted that slip permit transfer fees revenue was $500,000 less than in fiscal year 2024. Very unique item this year, we have the admin and comm related revenue, which is, it was a one-time transfer in revenue from the Santa Barbara Clean Energy Fund to the Waterfront Operating Fund to cover half of the Beacon membership dues, which is a regional joint powers authority with a focus on coastal erosion. The acronym Beacon stands for Beach Erosion Authority for Clean Oceans and Nourishment. Then, in facilities maintenance, this revenue was transferred to the waterfront as part of an insurance claim payment for public property that was damaged earlier in the year. Moving on to expenditures, we did have a good year in savings. Overall expenditures were just over $20 million, equal to 96% of the annual budget through the end of the fiscal year. All expenditure categories were at or below the budgeted amounts. The salaries and benefit category finished nearly $158,000 or 2% below the budget. As a full-time facilities maintenance position, as well as several hourly and facility employees positions remain vacant. But the bigger impact was by having this full-time position remain vacant through fiscal year 25. In the allocated cost category, it's fully expended. As you can see, it's zeroed out by year end. And these are set withdrawals amounts that we paid to other city departments for specific services. This category also includes a large and increasing expenditure such as property insurance, which continues to go up year over year, as we discussed in previous meetings. The supplies and services category ended the year at 12% below the budget amount. These savings were mainly the result of careful and conservative management of maintenance contracts and materials in both parking and the facilities division. We also had an $84,000 saving in cruise ship related expenses since we had less cruise ships this fiscal year. That amount usually would go towards paying for shuttle services, equipment such as tents, rentals, and roll-offs for storage and such. Facilities did not spend their entire budget on equipment repair, replacement, and equipment rental. So there were some savings there as well. However, this will likely be passed over to either this year or the future years, depending on usage and longevity of the equipment. The special project category was under budget by nearly $42,000 as a result of encumbered funds held for the commercial fishermen of Santa Barbara, CFSB. That was some grant money that remained unspent through the end of fiscal year 25. But as of today, that account has been spent. I believe it was processed in early July. The non-capital equipment category was under budget by 38%, or just under $64,000 due to savings on purchase of non-capital equipment. This is equipment procured outside of the scheduled capital program projects that generally sit in a different category and different spending bracket. This includes, for example, computer hardware, software, parking equipment, the gates and columns you see in the parking lots that need to be replaced here and there. And also includes harbor patrol equipment that did not require replacement this year. And such as turnouts and other type of equipment that may actually or not need replacement in the future based on the most recent changes to their operations. So on to the reserve balance. The most current review of our reserve balance shown here uses data through the end of the calendar year of 2024. For some background, a city council resolution requires the Waterfront Department to maintain a specific amount of dollars on hand in reserve. This is to respond to unplanned scenarios that could otherwise strain the department's annual operating budget. This policy requires the Waterfront Department to maintain a disaster reserve of 15% of the operating budget, as well as a contingency reserve at 10% of the operating budget, and capital reserves, which should be equal to 3 years average of capital expenditures. So currently we have a total available above policy of $6 million. By above policy, I mean that we already have what's required within the percentage requirements I just described, and above of that we have $6 million still. However, the Waterfront Department, we don't feel this is enough, a larger amount in reserves given the current and increasing cost of liabilities, such as the Stearns Wharf insurance, which this past July 1st increased from under $500,000 to $3 million for the deductible in case of any type of emergency or catastrophic need up on the wharf. That's a significant amount of money that the department needs to have on hand in order to meet any of these needs in case of a disaster. In addition, we have the potential elimination of the dredge funding with the annual cost of $4 million. That it's something that it's fresh of just a few months ago when the federal government cut the funding to dredge the harbor, which is something it's been a common practice from the federal government. And lastly, storm response, which is the costs are unknown depending on the type of storm event we get and the magnitude. As you may recall, we had instances where the Harbor West parking lot and Ledbetter both have been significantly affected just with standard high tide and a storm event. In addition, there is a need to maintain significant reserves for large spending capital projects related to sea level rise response and coastal resilience, especially, as I mentioned, the Harbor West parking lot and Ledbetter beachfront. These areas have become more and more prone to flooding, and it's something that we're paying close attention to and planning for future instances where we may have spending that may not be budgeted for. And also, a future project to replace Marinas 2, 3, and 4 is anticipated to cost somewhere between $15 and $20 million. So building reserves to cover these costs is something it's something prudent for us to do and ultimately necessary. Considering all these factors, we're working with the city administrator and the finance department to determine an appropriate reserve policy to cover increasing liabilities. In addition, our department will need to aggressively pursue revenue opportunities and expenditure reductions to maintain fiscal sustainability. So we're about to kick off our next budget cycle for adjustments to fiscal year 2027. So we just, earlier this year, we completed a 2-year cycle where we presented a budget for fiscal year 26 and 27. But we do have to go back to go through the process again for any type of adjustments for fiscal year 27, which will begin July 1st of 2026. So a huge amount of effort goes into this, and here you have a timeline, a tentative timeline, pointing out the major landmarks. So as part of the process, we start with staff preparing the budget from October through December of this year. Then we present the budget to the city administrator and the Harbor Commission's work groups. This generally happens in February or March of 2026. And again, those days are to be determined. From there, the budget is introduced to the City Council in April 2026. Then the Harbor Commission budget introduction, the budget is introduced to the Harbor Commission, generally following the council meeting. So usually we have to go to the City Council first, and either via special meeting, or if it lands prior to the monthly Harbor Commission meeting, we will have a regular meeting for that introduction of the budget. In May 2026, the Finance Committee will review any fee adjustment we may have. Generally, that would be any adjustments to parking fees, slip fees, and any other type of fees that are part of our revenues here in the harbor. Then it's followed by another Harbor Commission budget presentation, also in May. And then also in May, the finance department presents the entire city budget to the City Council, which at that point they will deliberate and give any feedback to staff, specific departments. And then finally, the budget is adopted in June, which will take effect on July 1st, 2026. So that's a snapshot of how this budget process will put forward, which is very similar to what we've done in the last few years. So to wrap up this presentation, in this slide I provide a high-level summary of where we stand with year-end revenues and expenditure savings, as well as plans to address future challenges. Our revenue and expenditures show a positive trend year-end, but challenges remain, especially with the rising cost of doing business, as reflected in the increasing figures in allocated costs and insurance premiums. This revenue growth observed in parking, there is revenue growth observed in parking, which they did very well, while there are revenue declines in marina management and property management, with some of the changes we had with our some of our tenants and in the food service items. In planning for the future, there are concerns for economic impacts to the food service and tenant-related revenues, as I've been mentioning. We've had significant number of turnover for restaurants and businesses in the harbor. It's a shift that hasn't happened in quite a while, and it's since COVID we've seen as a trend, and it comes with benefits and also with challenges. A big one is the potential federal defunding of the harbor channel dredging that will require the department to cover this $4 million to keep the harbor open, and as well as the premiums for the Stearns Wharf insurance costs as well. And With that, I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Great, thanks for the presentation, Mr. Barrios. Commissioner Nelson.
I have two questions. One is, I'm very concerned with the defunding of the dredging. Is it possible that we could use the reserves if the defunding holds? And I assume that I know you have representation on Capitol Hill you have representation that lobbies for you on Capitol Hill, and they're obviously trying to, make sure that doesn't continue. But if it did, and we're confronted with a $4 million deficit, could you go to the reserve to deal with that? Or are there prohibitions on the use of the reserve for that?
Yeah, Commissioner Nelson, I'll take that one. Really good question. First and foremost, we're going down every avenue we can to try and get federal funding, state funding, any other available funding. I myself was up in the Bay Area last week, kind of meeting with our lobbyists, meeting with other harbors, trying to really figure this out. The short answer is yes, we could use reserves for that, but at $4 million a year for dredging, that's a pretty quick use of our reserves, and so that would put our reserves well below policy, and so we'd have to go to council to essentially make that request for them to agree that we would hold our reserve, knowingly put our reserves under policy with really no set financial plan to rebuild them to policy. So it's a tough one.
Yep. Thanks.
Commissioner Stedman.
Yes, thank you very much. So given the, Caesar, the decrease year over year in slip transfer fees, pending lease chargeback, the wharf deductible, and then the risk, for a big dredge expense like Commissioner Nelson just mentioned, you emphasized throughout your presentation about, building reserves and looking at revenue opportunities. I'm wondering if you all have actively, and I may have brought this question up before, but if you are looking at a bond measure.
Yeah, Commissioner Stedman, we would, first of all, we're in reasonable shape. And so coming out of COVID was rough. We hit our reserves really hard. There was a couple big storms. And so if you kind of painted this 4 or 5 year picture, we did financially pretty well. There was a big return to business. Our tenant revenues were high. We've been putting forth a balanced budget almost every year. And every year we either come in with a little surplus or a little below. So currently we're in pretty good shape. There's all just these big headwinds facing us. I think the only reason we would go out for a bond measure is if we had specific capital projects to tie that to. So that could be something like sea level rise improvements, wall, bike path, these things that are way above dollars that we have on hand. Replacing Marinas 2, 3, and 4 like we did with Marina 1. We went out and essentially borrowed that money from the Department of Boating and Waterways. So I don't think we do that just to kind of have money on hand, but if we have a discrete project that we need to point that at, it's a really viable reason to do it. The other thing to note, we're currently servicing debt, around $10 or $12 million worth of debt for the rebuilding of Marina 1 and some repair work that happened on Stearns Wharf after some fires. Some of that debt is coming due as we're paying it off, and it's all staggered, but some of it's coming done in 2028 and years after that. So as our debt load goes down, we spend about $2 million a year just servicing previous debt. So as that debt comes down, we'll have a bigger appetite and we can borrow more money to complete larger projects that we can't fund ourselves.
And one last question. Since the deductible has ballooned for the insurance at Stearns Wharf, and you were recently up with a lot of your colleagues in the Bay Area, has there been any discussion about self-insurance?
Yeah, it's really difficult if you look at kind of the cost of rebuilding Stearns Wharf or something like that. It's an astronomical amount of money. So Stearns Wharf's a big economic engine. So going from $250,000 deductible to a $3 million deductible is a giant jump. But looking at it for its like economic value within the city, a $3 million deductible is still worth it and viable. So as of now, the city and our finance and risk department kind of manage our insurance portfolio on what we can self-insure on and what we can go out to the market. Up till now, we've been going through kind of a joint powers agreement, a JPA, with other cities who have wharves.
Right.
So, but admittedly, insuring wharfs in the Pacific Ocean is a tough game right now. So as of now, we're trying the best we can to kind of negotiate those premiums down, but we're staying with our insurance provider as of now.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes, thank you. Back to the dredging topic, the $4 million, is that per year or per cycle? Don't we do 2 per year?
Yeah, that's roughly the amount per year. And so that's historically how much the federal government has funded the Army Corps to dredge, 3.6 to kind of 3.8 million per year, and that covers both cycles.
And then is that amount of dredging they do, is that the bare minimum, or is there a space where we could rework maybe the flow of the boats to some degree, one-lane traffic or something, where it would be a narrower passageway and it would cost half as much, or?
Yeah,
is that-
yeah, that's a really great question too. And the Army Corps has been quite flexible. So myself and Brian Adair, our facilities manager, have been working pretty closely with them to see how we can kind of get the most out of the funding we have left. We still have some FY25 federal funds available, so we think we can kind of maybe get a cycle and a half out of them. So we're hoping to dredge like we usually would in the winter, December, January, and then maybe have some leftover funds, or maybe even potentially borrow federal funds from another California harbor who doesn't need them, and see where we're at. The Army Corps has very specific targets and very specific delineations with where they can dredge and to what depths. And so a lot of times when they do dredge, they finish and they clear the area out, and they haven't met the total amount that they could have dredged out of there. And so if that's the case, we kind of bank some savings. And so we have some of those savings banked as well. So we're hoping to be able to at least get dredged through kind of a cycle and a half and get us into the summer of next year.
Sounds like you guys are really exploring all the options on that one. One other question is more procedure on how it works, just from my knowledge. I remember the budget last year on the parking. We had a rate. You guys presented us a rate initially, and then we decided we thought that was a good one to increase. Is that why we're seeing the over budget, or is that reflected and we just happen to have more people parking?
A big function of that, it's the increase in the parking rate. So yeah, it is part of that increase. It's materialized in that additional funds.
So to be clear, that number is like frozen, and then we decided to add more to it.
Yeah, correct. I can firmly say that if we did not raise our parking rates, we would have been in a deficit situation this year.
Thank you.
Also, one other thing regarding the parking, have we accounted for what we talked about last commission meeting regarding the self-pay stations going forward in the budget? Is that something we're considering in terms of like revenue?
Chair Stanwyck, we are. I mean, we're currently, as of right now, we have the standard process where we replace a next amount of pay stations every year. As we discussed at the last meeting, we're proposing this pay-by-place system, which will potentially reduce the amount of pay stations needed in each parking lot. So that could free up some funds and make the experience for the public and for staff that's overseeing doing the enforcement a lot more simpler and more convenient. But yeah, it is. Looking back at fiscal year 25, that was the status quo, what we've been doing year over year with this machine. So it's not included in that part.
Great, thanks. One other question I have regarding the reserves over policy, with the deductible going up about 2.5, 3 million, do we have a goal for our reserves over policy? Right now we're sitting at like 6 million. Is there a target that we have in mind for the next few years?
Yeah, we're actually working with the finance department and council, because we haven't accounted for that deductible yet. Essentially, what that deductible means is that we need $3 million on hand if anything happens to Stearns Wharf. Luckily, we have enough in our standard contingency and disaster reserves, but I think it would be prudent if we account for that new amount of dollars. And so potentially this budget cycle, we can work with Harbor Commission, our finance department, and council to see if there's a possibility of essentially starting a new reserve, or at minimum coming to some conclusion that we need to hold higher than policy reserves in the event that something were to happen at Stearns Wharf.
Great, thanks. Commissioner Stedman?
Yes, thank you very much. I have another question on parking. So the improvement in the budget, you both have said, has been attributable to the rise in the fees, correct?
Yes, in most part, it has. Yeah, I mean, we've had positive weather. I mean, parking is a function, parking at the waterfront is a function of the weather. So if especially in the fall and winter months. But specific, just by running the numbers, looking at occupancy, not just looking at dollars, but the number of visitors we've had. If it wasn't for the increase we had in fiscal year 25, then we had not met this goal, had this surplus in funds in parking.
And that term occupancy refers to the total amount of parking spaces?
A mix of not necessarily. It refers to the number of visitors that we have every year.
I see.
So when we're at full capacity, meaning that on average, the majority of the parking spaces on weekends, we have some key months, weekends where if we meet the demand, usually we can predict what our revenues will be moving forward. It sets trends. Parking is a tool that we use to, it correlates with sales for food service tenants as well. If parking is low, usually our property management revenues are also low because we have less visitors.
And how many parking spaces do we have?
Just over 2,200 parking spaces total, including 90-minute stalls.
Right, because as I was listening to everything that you were saying, I was thinking, are we managing the budget to meet the capacity, or are we managing the budget to increase the fees, right?
And that's correct. I mean, parking, we have three sources of income, which is parking, slip fees, and properties, leases and rents. So we have to, as the costs increase, for example, allocated costs go up every year, not just a premium deductible for the cost of insurance, but just like the actual cost to operate continues to go up. The few tools that we have, or the only tools we have to make that adjustment, is by either increasing parking fees and slip fees in the short term. Leases are tied to multi-year terms, so we can't just, they're not a simple tool to generate additional revenue.
Right. And in terms of cost for parking, I mean, we are mitigating those by moving into an automated environment, right? So that's less labor?
That is correct. So we already have automated parking lots, so the self-pay parking lots. The only two parking lots out of the six that we have that are operated by a person are the Harbor and Stearns Wharf. Currently, we have no plan to automate those two locations. There's a lot going on in those parking lots. The Wharf requires somebody to oversee traffic flow and just to manage the area as is. And then the Harbor, it's the several components, boat trailers, just the type of use, so many uses that it is viable to have somebody there. It could potentially be automated, but it's not something we're planning at the time.
Got it. Thanks, Cesar.
I don't see any other questions. Oh, Commissioner Nelson, you have a question? Yep.
Back to rents and leases, a $640,000 default is pretty serious. And you suggested that it could represent a $250,000 impact if it's not cured in this year's budget. Did you say that?
Yeah, Commissioner Nelson, so as FY '25 rounded out, overall in our total, whatever it was, $21 million revenue profile, we ran $382,000 over budget, so that would be considered a surplus. That would go to reserves, and we could use that for future programming. What that doesn't account for is that $630,000 in uncollected rent. So that rent is still owed to us. That number includes it as if we've booked
Right.
it. So if we don't actually receive that rent, that number will be $630,000 lower, so that'll actually put our '25 budget at about a $250,000 deficit, which means we have to borrow from reserves to balance last year's budget. So it really does kind of like hinge on that amount of rent if we are running a surplus or a deficit in our past fiscal year.
Yeah. So, as in the previous proceeding on a termination of a slip, does the Harbor Commission have any role if the tenant cannot possibly cure, or the period of time has gone on, or is that a whole different category and we are not engaged in that at all? Because if we are, it would be nice to know in advance what our role would be.
Yeah. All of our property leases are with city council, so they're the ultimate deciding body, and so in this case, they are involved. It is a legal process at this point, so I don't want to comment on it too much, but it is directly under city council's purview.
Okay.
Great. I don't see any other questions. Mr. Lopez, do we have any public comment on item number 4?
We have no hands raised and no speaker slips submitted. Chair Stanwyck.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commission on item number 4? All right. Thank you, Mr. Barrios, for the presentation. All right, we can move on now to item number 5 of new business, the review of the waterfront slip permit waitlist policy. This is the third review. We've discussed this pretty extensively. I know in the staff report, it's very detailed. We have a municipal code. We have a red outline of the changes. So thank you, staff, for providing that for us. Mr. Lopez, can you please read the recommendation for item number 5 of new business?
Yes, this is the recommendation for item 5. Recommendation that Harbor Commission review the proposed slip waitlist policy revisions and recommend forwarding to Ordinance Committee and City Council for review and approval.
Great, thank you. Turn it over to the waterfront. Thanks, Mr. Aldridge.
Great. Thank you, Chair Stanwyck, Commissioners, members of the public. Again, I am Harbor Operations Manager Nathan Aldridge, and tonight I will be presenting slip waitlist policy draft. Once again, this is our third review. In brief summary, as mentioned, this has been discussed previously extensively here at the Commission with revisions first in May of 2025 and second in July of 2025. The proposed changes have been supported by both the Harbor Commission and members of the public. The aim is really threefold to improve the wait list, fairness, and also accessibility. The changes align with our local coastal program and direction from the California State Lands Commission. For the key proposed changes, these 3 bullet points sum up what the aim is for our department. Number 1, the slips from the wait list will be non-transferable. And this mirrors the recent coup de doc change that came before the Commission earlier this year. Secondly, the new policy will consolidate what is termed the master, the submaster, and the lottery wait list into one wait list, and will allow the general public to apply for this wait list each year. And finally, Harbor Commission will hold a yearly wait list lottery for interested boaters. Recently, the addition of 9 commercial fishing slips on the Cabrillo Landing was welcomed and supported by the commercial fishermen as well as Harbor Commission here. And a key element of this new policy is the non-transferability. Once again, that means that it prevents private profiting from slips that were assigned at no cost. Consolidating that master, the submaster, and the lottery list into one wait list and opening up to the general public will promote that equal access. And this yearly wait list lottery refreshes the list and ensures that there's going to be active interest in using the slip. So I'll go into a bit more detail for each change. So beginning with non-transferability. Any slip received from our wait list cannot be transferred between private parties. Slips received off this wait list would be used by an individual for active boating, which would then be returned to the waterfront department once they wanted to either sell the boat or move on. There'd be no transfer fee associated with receiving a slip from this wait list, and this would dramatically lower the barrier of entry for the general public to acquire a slip permit, and removes any financial benefit to remaining on the wait list solely in hopes of a future profit. The second key change would be the consolidation of these lists. Again, the current master, submaster, and lottery list would be consolidated into one wait list. Individuals currently on these lists would be offered a place on the first year's new wait list. Moving forward, they could choose to apply for any subsequent waitlist lottery. This waitlist lottery would be open to the general public, with the exception of existing slip permittees or spouses or legally registered domestic partners. They would not be eligible for the waitlist. And finally, an annual waitlist lottery. A Harbor Commission would oversee a drawing to choose 20 names by lot from a lottery pool of interested applicants who would be ranked 1 through 20. If a waitlist eligible slip became available in the course of that year, it would be offered down the list until accepted. If the slip had been offered to the full list and was still not accepted, the slip would be held in the Waterfront Department's visitor slip inventory until the next held lottery. At the end of the year, another lottery would take place and a new waitlist would be generated. And a question came up last time about commercial fishing, the commercial fishing wait list. Any designated commercial fishing slip that returns to the wait list will remain a designated commercial fishing slip. And these slips will only be available to a qualified commercial fisherman and will be assigned according to their rank on the list. And in the scenario that the wait list has no designated commercial fisherman, a single commercial fishing slip lottery will be held, which follows and mirrors our current commercial fishing slip lottery policy. So staff also looked into several questions that were asked from a previous Harbor Commission meeting. First, what would be the implications of these changes as they relate to State Lands Commission and our relationship? Staff had a meeting with State Lands Commission. They were very supportive of these these proposed changes. And they fully agreed that any of these changes align with our local coastal program. They improve accessibility and fairness, and they would eliminate issues with profiting off public slips from this wait list. Another question that was addressed was what would be the implications involving any entitlements to existing waitlist members? So staff looked into this and worked with the city attorney's office, and they have no concern with any entitlements or obligation owed to existing individuals who would be on this waitlist. Waitlists are voluntary, and they carry no expectation or any guarantee of receiving a slip or reimbursement of any fees paid. Now, as a courtesy, this policy would allow that these individuals to remain on this wait list for 1 year. These individuals were contacted and also given an opportunity to weigh in on these proposed changes as well. And lastly, the question came up with any financial implications that would be involved with eliminating a transfer fee. Staff currently has no concerns with the budgetary impacts due to this policy change. Any future issues or impacts with our budget can be handled through our annual budget process that was just explained while we evaluate revenues and expenditures. And to put this in perspective, a transfer from a waitlist slip is less than 1% of all of the overall slip transfers that happen in our harbor every year. It's a very small number, but staff will continue to evaluate any fiscal impacts that this policy would have over time and make any necessary adjustments. So to sum up, tonight's recommendation is that the Harbor Commission review and recommend to Ordinance Committee and City Council the implementation of this revised slip waitlist policy draft as outlined. And with that, I will turn it back over to the Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Aldridge. Do we have any questions from the commission regarding item number 5? Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you for that presentation. I think you guys have done some good work on getting that in there. That's looking good. One question I have is the state land commissions or the coastal commission, anywhere in their governance do they preference California residents for access to the ocean? Like I guess what I'm getting at, is there any thought behind having a requirement to get on the list of being a resident or belonging to the county? Or is it just, they just want everyone to have access to the water no matter where they come from?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Anderson. I know Director Wilshire could probably fill in from my answer as well. My experience is that we have been warned away from that language with our city attorney's office, and also in discussion with the Coastal Commission of being very, very careful about drafting or creating policy that does that, just from the sort of exposure from a legal perspective. Director Wilshire, you may have a little more information on that, but from the limited conversations I've had, it's a very valid question, right? And we do, in other areas of policy, want to find ways that we can prioritize local access, obviously. But my understanding is that legally, it's a bit tricky to do.
Yeah, and we've gone down this road with a couple things before, with parking and different things, and Mr. Aldridge was correct. This, especially with the State Lands Commission, their purview and who they're looking after are the general public of California. And so all of our waterfront was granted to the city in the 1920s by the state. So our kind of mandates and what we're charged with doing is providing access to essentially the population of California. So they really frown upon localized things where it's like, hey, you can only get this benefit if you are lucky enough to live in Santa Barbara or have a house in Santa Barbara. And so at least that hyper local, but we could look into something at the California level because that really is their charge. And so maybe they would be okay with prioritizing it at the state level, but I know they're very much against the hyper local level.
Thank you. I remember during COVID, there was always stories about people not being allowed on certain beaches if they didn't have ID from that county, right? I don't know how true that was, but I remember seeing posts on that. So I understand the local side of things for sure. I don't think by any means it needs to hold up the process. It could be something that we implement later if it's something that they do value. Thank you for the information.
Thanks. Any other questions from the commission? Mr. Lopez, do we have any public comment on item number 5 of new business?
There are no speaker slips submitted and no hands raised, Chair Stanwyck.
Great, thank you. My thoughts on this, the State Lands Commission are on board with this. The city attorney are on board with this. Most importantly, when we had this issue come up at the last Harbor Commission meeting, it was unanimous, all 7 of us that voted in favor of this. It has now moved on to the red draft and revising of the Muni Code. I think it's a great idea. It was always something that was very confusing of me when I was navigating the whole slip field in Santa Barbara. So I think this is well received and overdue for a change in a positive way. With that, I know this is an actionable item. Mr. Lopez, would you be able to please read the recommendation for us for item number 5?
Yes. Recommendation that Harbor Commission review the proposed slip waitlist policy revisions and recommend forwarding to Ordinance Committee and City Council for review and approval.
Thank you. This time a motion would be in order.
Motion to forward to the Ordinance Committee and City Council for implementation.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve the recommendation, and we have a second. With that, Mr. Lopez, can you please do a vote for us?
Yes, and this is a motion by Commissioner Stedman, seconded by Commissioner Nelson. Commissioner Nelson.
Aye.
Commissioner Stedman.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Chair Stanwyck.
Yes.
And that motion passes unanimously with Commissioners McCray and Cohen absent.
Great, thank you. We can now move on to the department updates. We have item number 6, the facilities management report, and the commercial ice house renovation update. With that, we can turn it over to the waterfront. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brian Dare, Facilities Manager at the Waterfront. I'd like to give you a facilities report.
It's frozen.
Thanks for all your
Ice
support,
house.
gentlemen.
Rarely happens.
This evening, I'd like to talk about the Ice House Rehab Project update. The Ice House Rehab Project update. Ice House was constructed in 1992. There was a discussion on renovating or replacement in 2021. At that juncture, we agreed that it would be best for us to do a multi-phase approach to upgrade our existing equipment to get some more extended life. Project objectives were to extend the life of the equipment, reduce unscheduled downtime, improve operations, enhance safety features, and then wait for a better technology on refrigeration. Current tasks that we've completed so far with a budget expenditures of $212,000. I replaced compressor electric drive motor, replaced cooling tower variable frequency drive, replaced the programmable logical controller, install freon gas alarm system. We did building repairs and waterproofing, and also painted it. We repaired 6 piles under the ice house, and also not listed here, we replaced pressure relief valves and vented them to outside the building. Freon gas displaces oxygen, and therefore, if it does have a release of gas, we want the gas to go out. If there is a release of gas, we want an alarm to warn us before going into the building. Tasks that are currently in progress, a budget of $300,000. Install proposed service catwalk. We have some equipment that's above ground level that can't be reached, and it's very awkward and very unsafe to reach it. So a catwalk will ensure employee safety and better access to the equipment and maintenance of the equipment. We want to install 2 access ports on the east side of the ice house, one for emergency exit, improved emergency exit if you're inside the ice storage bin, and also access to the horizontal conveyor when it jams up or it needs to be serviced. These ports will give us very quick access rather climbing through the ice pile inside the ice bin. We want to replace the elevator conveyor and also extend it up another 4 feet to give us more clearance and prevent the ice from jamming in the delivery system. Because we're extending the elevator, we also need to widen the west balcony, existing balcony. The walk-in freezer door on the west side is deteriorated and rotted. We have to replace that. We currently are replacing the ice maker bearings and gearbox. This is simple illustrations on different elevations. The west elevation, you'll see a blue box. That's the walk-in freezer door that we're replacing. Above it is the existing balcony, which we're going to extend out so we can service the new elevator. On the right side is east elevation, which shows the new proposed catwalk that we can service the elevator motor drive system. And the blue boxes are the port access ports on the east side that we're proposing. And then on a little bit to the top and the right is a green. That indicates how we're elevating the elevating conveyor. Another elevation from the south side. You can see on the left top yellow line is how we're going to expand the existing balcony. On the bottom right of that drawing, you show another yellow line. That's the new catwalk that we're proposing. On the north elevation, you'll see those two balconies again, and also the green line indicating that whole elevator conveyor will be replaced. It's a screw elevator, the drive motor elevator, but we're going to extend it that 4 feet shown in green. This work is, it was very difficult to get a permit. We had to wait our turn more or less, but we got all the permits, and now we're waiting for the contractor. We're probably going to start this phase mid-October. Future task, estimate of $275,000. Replace some Freon copper tubing that's aging and corroding. The Freon that we currently use is R22, which is not manufactured anymore. And eventually we need to phase out of it. It's very expensive to replace. Since I've been here, we've had very little Freon leaks, and we're doing a good job, but some copper tubing is corroding over the years, and to prevent any release, we want to replace the tubing. Not much, but enough to keep us in good standing. We want to replace the horizontal conveyor and racking system, replace the ice maker drum itself. There's a compressor that provides refrigeration. We want to replace that. And then also start thinking about a new, more environmentally friendly Freon, exchanging it to something different. But this future task is going to go until like 2030, 2031. So we're not really pushing this quickly, this next phase, but we want to be proactive, get the materials, the parts, contracts, permits, whatever we need. But we want to keep the ice house in good standing and be reliable for our commercial fishing industry. This diagram shows our tonnage of ice sold per year, and you can see it's trending down, but it's trending back up. This is annual sales revenue that we receive in 2025. The graph is going up because we increased the price per pound of ice, so that increase is very much needed. Price per pound, and it can help offset our operating costs. The fuel dock has been very nice and very cooperative to help us dispense ice 7 days a week. So they do a great job, but we have to offset their labor costs for providing that service. And as you can see, their monthly fee to us has gone up naturally. And I still think we're getting a bargain for their services that they provide in customer service. This shows the price increase per pound of ice that we sell and what's projected in 2026. Still a bargain. Any questions?
Great, thank you, Mr. Adair. Do we have any questions from the commission? Commissioner Nelson.
Some of these, as I look at these items, they're large and they're expensive. Is it possible that you don't jeopardize one by not doing another? So you're phasing this in, but I wonder, if you don't deal with the bin compressor copper tubing, do you jeopardize the conveyor? I mean, I'm trying to get a feel for what happens if we don't do one of these things. Does it jeopardize the incredible investment that's already been made?
If we didn't do all this today, or if something failed tomorrow, we can quickly buy that part and
So it literally is, you can just bolt it on.
plug and play, yes, yes.
And I forgot what the original appropriation was for the replacement of the ice house. Has the amount of funding that we have dedicated to it increased beyond that original allocation?
When I first started working here, there was a construction estimate of $1.7 million. And
I was trying to think, I think it was only $800,000 or something. actually.
yeah, right now, with these completed, in progress, and future, we're at $800,000. So, and then the original 1.7 was just to replace the ice-making machine, not the building. And so we're ahead of the game at this point.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission regarding facilities? Commissioner Anderson.
What's the theory on so much less ice being purchased? Is it less fish, more efficient packaging? It's caught up. Can they get ice elsewhere? I can't imagine 20 cents per pound. That's as cheap as it can get, right? Why do we think we're seeing less?
Yeah, Commissioner Anderson, it's demand on fishing and products. And so as markets kind of ebb and flow, it's like a pretty purely driven by their need for ice. So I think it might be a result of less fishing and or less products that require that level of ice.
Another variable too is shipping. Maybe have more refrigerated container shipping versus packing it at ice. Another thing is maybe some of the retail outlets or wholesalers, they have their own ice machines and aren't depending on us 100%. So, but I'm speculating those might be two other variables.
But what I will do, I meet with CFSB every couple weeks, and they're probably kind of unaware of this aggregated data. So now that we have it, I'll share it with them and see if they have any insights on it as well.
Yeah, because I feel like in general, when we're talking about fishing, it's like a good, positive story we're talking about. And so I'm just surprised to see, hopefully it's nothing hiding in the ice or anything, but yeah. Thank you.
All right, with no further questions, thanks for the report, Mr. Adair. We're all set. All right, we can move on to item number 7, the Harbor Operations Report.
All right, thank you, Chair Stanwyck, Commissioners, members of the public, for the third time this evening, once again. This is Operations Manager Nathan Aldridge. And for tonight's final report, I will give a brief overview of our upcoming lobster season. So the Waterfront Department has already begun to allow commercial fishermen to stage or to set up their traps in our launch ramp to aid in their operations before lobster season effectively starts. So recreational season begins 6 o'clock on the Friday before the first Wednesday in October to that first Wednesday on the 15th of March after the 15th. And commercial season is slightly different, begins October 1st through the 18th of March. And as you might imagine, a lot goes into baiting traps, setting traps, getting to fisheries, moving your gear and equipment. And so on this next slide, you'll see a schematic that we have handed out and contacted our commercial fishermen in the harbor to give them an idea of where they're able to stage their traps. You can see it accommodates most of the sort of vertical launch ramp areas in those spaces and a few of them on that horizontal space, while all still making room for recreational trailer use. And for staging information, it begun on the 17th, beginning of this week. That required a reservation and prepayment to reserve spaces. Stalls can be reserved by either calling our office or coming into the harbor master's office. A couple notable changes for this year. Fishermen are able to reserve 2 stalls per person. That's up from 1 stall we had last year. $8 per day, and about 16 days or so maximum storage, and up from 27 total reservable stalls, we have 32 this year. Once again, the waterfront really strives to partner with our commercial fishing fleet just whenever possible. And I really want to make sure that I give a huge thank you to our administrative supervisor, Jeanette Przinski, who you've seen here in these meetings, and also our parking supervisor, Nicole Tellez, and her team, for not only just making improvements to the program this year and last, but spending hours this week going out and marking the stalls and noticing and signing. So it really does take a village, and we have some fantastic cooperation between parking and operations to support this industry. Entire waterfront and our commercial fishing community is eagerly looking forward to what's hopefully another great season. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Chair Stanwyck.
Great, thank you, Mr. Aldridge. Questions from the commission? Commissioner Stedman.
Yes, I have a question about the lobster traps. I mean, we're working on the staging end, right? And kudos, for increasing the number of available stalls. But recently, didn't Fish and Game revoke the licenses of 2 lobster fishermen? Do we participate in any enforcement for lobster trap retrieval?
Yeah, Commissioner Stedman, that's a fantastic question. Big, broad brushstrokes, and what I would say is an overview. The commercial fishing industry, even though it sounds really big, it's a very small community, especially down in Southern California, especially in Southern California Bight, especially in the Santa Barbara Channel, and in these fisheries that are very heavily managed, as you might imagine. The rules and regulations from Fish and Wildlife for everything from invertebrates to crustaceans to finfish to lobsters, it's very, very specific. And when you can set traps, when you can bait traps, when they need to be retrieved. And we work with our partners at Fish and Wildlife, when there are issues of, like you're saying, abandoned traps. There's a whole host of reasons why that's a bad practice. And a few notable exceptions have made the news. And so generally what will happen is that Fish and Wildlife will start an investigation of their own. They have game wardens who go out, and they have their own vessels and their own vehicles, and they do, patrols, irregular patrols in some of the MPAs out there in the marine protected areas to make sure people aren't taking in spots they shouldn't. And then another great thing about the traps is that they're marked, and so they're traceable back to that fisherman. And so it's pretty quick to realize, in I think the rare instance that somebody's abusing that. And in these cases that you mentioned, it was an investigation that Fish and Wildlife started, and they found several different fishermen guilty of abandoning traps and levied, which is a pretty severe consequence. But from my understanding, it wasn't the first time, and it's fairly egregious.
So in those 2, I thought I read their licenses are revoked.
And that's my understanding.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from the commission? All right, thank you, Mr. Aldridge. I think we're set. Okay, we can move on to commission and staff communications. Director Wiltshire, do we have any staff communications?
Yeah, I had a couple, and we're doing well on time. So I just wanted to call out a notable absence. Commissioner Kate Ford is not here tonight. She's kind of stepped into a bigger pond, and so she was recently appointed by the Santa Barbara County Planning Commission, and so it was deemed that she couldn't hold both offices. So just wanted to take a moment to thank her for her time with the Harbor Commission. I personally enjoyed working with her. She brought a great professionalism and kind of get it done attitude, and had a huge amount of experience with public process. So our loss, but no doubt she'll do great work at Santa Barbara County Planning Commission. I have a feeling she's that committed that she's probably watching this right now, so.
She absolutely is.
Good luck, Kate, and good luck with your next endeavor. Thank you. And with that, the other note is, so applications for city boards and commissions, including Harbor Commission applications, are due on October 3rd. So the city's going through the recruitment process right now, and so we do have a vacancy on the Harbor Commission as of January 1, well, as of now, but as of January 1, too. So for the public, anyone interested, you can apply to be a Harbor Commissioner and get an application in by October 3rd. So thank you.
Thanks, Director Wiltshire. Yeah, also too, just a big thank you to Vice Chair Ford. I know, congratulations to her, and we really valued her work on strategic planning, as well as her attitude, knowledge, and decisiveness for the Harbor Commission. So congratulations to Kate Ford. Anybody else on the commission? Commissioner Nelson?
Well, we have a big
We do, October 18th. We got one more, one more meeting before it. So, but yeah, October 18th, Harbor and Seafood Festival, so.
Great, yeah, looking forward to that. Okay, without any other communications, we move on to adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn for this evening?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. We'll do a vote. All in favor?
Aye?
All opposed? Any abstentions? Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.